Questioning user asks, human resources employees, what are your best HR nightmare stories? User 2. I am on the HR team that supports a wide variety of US cities for our company, including our colorful Florida locations. This is the best story I heard. We had some woman trying to avoid doing work by sitting out in her car in the parking lot. While she was hiding out there, she needed to use the restroom. Well, instead of going back inside, or doing literally anything else, she decides to pee out a car window. Even though I am also a woman, I was impressed and disgusted by the physics behind this featuring. She had stuck her bare ass outside the window and just went for it. Unbeknownst to her, a male co-worker had arrived at work late due to an appointment. He drove past to find a parking spot as this was happening, and got full view. He then reported the incident to us. One of our HR people had to investigate this, and sure enough, parking lot cameras could corroborate his story. Our HR person confronted the woman. Her response, well, how did he know it was me? It could have been anyone. We thought, okay, fair enough. The cameras aren't CSI grade zoom, so we only saw the us part. It was harder to completely identify the face, so we went back to the male peer and asked how he knew it was her. His response, oh, it was definitely her. The face tattoos are pretty recognizable. We definitely don't get paid enough for this. Edit. For you investigative sleuths out there, our cameras are not as amazing as you think they are. It's a parking lot, not the White House. The one camera that caught the event didn't have hyper zoom on the license plate. That's why we have a witness. And, user 3, I had one employee submit a form to increase her own salary. She also forged her manager's signature. Like, for real. And, user 4, I once submitted a form to change my title to Dark Overlord, without any approvals, to prank ID, and the guy I was messing with did it to prank me back. For half a day anyone emailing or IMing me was shown my title was Dark Overlord, and my manager spent the whole time freaking out. And, user 5, one place I used to work. One of the upper management guys who was in charge of the warehouse would hop on the forklifts and do donuts. He had colon cancer and was always having surgeries to remove another section of colon, so he had a colostomy bag he would squeeze air out of his colostomy bag while he was doing donuts on the forklifts. It would waft this god-awful stench everywhere. Everyone thought it was hilarious and would immediately run outside for a smoke break until the scent dissipated. The smell was bad enough it made a co-worker puke. Also had another manager there eat 10 sacks of White Castle sliders for lunch. He ate the last 10 sack on the toilet. I have no idea how he could eat with the sounds and stenches he was emitting from his other, and it sounded like someone trying to drown Donald Duck in a puddle while tooting a tube, and no one went into that bathroom for the rest of the day. And, user 6, my friend was doing hiring for a staffing agency during college. A guy who we went to high school came in looking for a job. He told the candidate that he had 2 jobs. One paid 10 an hour and the other paid 11. The only thing was that the 11 an hour job requires a drug test, and if you fail the drug test you can't get either. He said that he wanted the 11 an hour job. Now we knew him well enough to know that he liked smoking, so my friend reiterated the drug test fail rule. Dude said he was good on Friday to take the test Monday. Come Monday he took the drug test, pissed had for weed, cocaine, amphetamines, and some other shit that gets out of your system in 48 hours. And, user 7, not in HR but my previous senior manager was renowned for sleeping with colleagues. He was married with kids. Before I started there I remember seeing a huge banner plastered across a footbridge that everyone leaving work by car had to drive under to get to the motorway. The sign said, Joe Blogs, not actual name, cheating bastard. Turns out he was cheating on his wife with a team leader from another dept, and was cheating on his mistress with another team leader from yet another department. Both the team leaders found out about each other and had a massive fight in the reception of the building. By the time I started at the company both of the team leaders were no longer working there, and, user 8, not an hour employee, but a manager who was handed an hour nightmare to help resolve. Someone will get a kick out of this. Background, I was working as a teller manager in a small regional bank. My branch had 6 small colleges within a 30-minute drive. The company liked to hire college students to work as tellers, because they usually didn't want to work full-time, no benefits, therefore cheaper to employ, and with their somewhat random availability, it was easy to schedule even the unpopular shifts. All of the tellers in my branch are college students. I get a call from the regional HR manager. He is transferring a teller to my location from another branch, across town, who has been nothing but a headache. I am to document every single thing that this teller does wrong, no matter how minor the infraction. Apparently she had ticked off all of her co-workers there by filing HR complaints against all of them. I'll call her TT, transferred teller, from here on. I was able to get more detail out of one her managers. TT was a student at one of the local colleges, but her only hobbies were riding her horse and going to her church. The only things she ever wanted to talk about was her horse, her beliefs, and trying to convert co-workers to her religion. Talk about anything else and she'd find a way to connect the topic to violating her beliefs, criticize her, or talk about something that she wouldn't do, and she'd file a harassment complaint. TT was transferred to my branch, and on her first day, she went off on another teller for talking about a date said teller's boyfriend had taken her on. The next day, she filed her first HR complaint, sexual harassment, against one of my staff for talking about using a certain famous dating app. Speaking to TT while taking the complaint, discovered she's very socially conservative. The employee handbook said, in summary, on the topic of sexual harassment, what counts depended on what offended the most easily offended person present, so watch your mouth and where you talked. I pulled each teller into a one-on-one meeting, walked them through the sections of the handbook on harassment, and warned them to be careful of what they discussed where. I did not call out TT, but everyone guessed who we were talking about. Word about her had made its way around the grapevine. Over the course of the next couple weeks she filed a new complaint roughly every other day. All of the complaints were for co-workers talking about, or doing, normal things for 18-22-year-olds, such as, a co-worker went to a party and had a one-night stand, saw a co-worker hug her boyfriend when he brought her lunch, a co-worker wore a blouse that showed a bit of cleavage, a co-worker refused to get up early on Sunday to come to church with her. Morale was low, everyone is stressed coming in every day, most of the staff are refusing to talk to TT, and grumbling to HR manager, who just answers everything with documented infractions, so I'm writing up every minor mistake, categorizing them, and for each category I think I have enough, composing a formal write-up and submitting it to HR for approval. I wish I could remember how many I wrote. Was sure we'd be stuck with TT for months before I had enough TARDIS or draw errors for HR to be willing to fire her. But after about a month, she made the error we needed. There's a religious group that's well known in our state, and the group's HQ is in our city. The group's religious leader occasionally would come into my branch. For some reason he liked dropping off deposits and transfers himself. It didn't take much to get him preaching on a topic. Everyone would just smile and nod along while finishing his transaction. But TT couldn't do that. Apparently her church takes some issues with what his church teaches. He came in to run a transaction. She called him next out of line. While running his transaction, she recognized the name of the church. They started talking, then arguing, then she was yelling at him. Unfortunately, I was in the back, so I missed this. Fortunately, I was in the bank, so it went on long enough that her customer took offense. She was dragged into the back to separate them. He filed a complaint, which I wrote up as an official customer complaint. Those get reviewed by VP and the operations director, but I also CC'd HR manager. Religious harassment of a commercial customer with a few million on deposit was sufficient for HR to terminate her the next day, and, user 9 I work in recruitment so not exactly HR. A guy had applied for a job that required a DBS check, police check. He filled the DBS and all his other checks flew through. The DBS came back as he had committed a crime in the past. Now on our end only the guy who will be applicant's manager and a senior in our department can see the DBS result. He called the department unhappy the job had been withdrawn. He then sent a long email and begging for another chance. He said when he was 17 he beat 2 women up and threatened the cops with a gun. We're in the UK so guns are pretty rare, especially in the 1970s. He went into detail about the attempted rape. This dude wanted a job in a hospital. It's an mate. And, user 10 there was a dude in our other facility that was going around and wiping their ass and shoving the shit back up into the toilet paper dispenser so that when the next person goes to reach. And, user 11 once upon a time I was an hour manager. This is my worst story. Once I had a dude who looked great on paper for a mid-level role at the large non-profit I worked for. We were a houselessness and addiction rehab shelter. Easily the type of resume for our operations depth which made us all think, oh this guy looks good. He could be management material someday with these type of credentials. I phone interviewed him and thought, oh yeah, the team's gonna love him. We set up an in-person interview. I wasn't able to sit in on the in-person interview, so the director of that depth and his best longest standing employee did it. Apparently when the guy first showed up and was asked if he'd like anything to drink, he asked for a bourbon on the rocks. Kidding, and everything went downhill from there. According to the depth director and the other employee, the interview went immediately terrible and the guy kept floating things like, But I bet you're not going to hire me because of comma. They felt like every answer from the guy and every question was meant to be some sort of verbal trap he was laying, so they cut it pretty short. Later, the guy called me back directly. He had my office because I had used it to phone interview him, and left a VM. He started by saying essentially thank you for the opportunity, but I really didn't appreciate how you guys clearly didn't want to hire me because I'm a male, I'm too old, I'm a father, I have a chronic medical issue, I was an alcoholic 10 plus years ago, I was once homeless, etc, etc. All of these are verbal traps, and I'm 100% sure he was trying to trap us so he could disparage the organization and sue us. I can say definitively that none of these were true. We weren't thinking of any of these things, and we were damn near ready to hire him before the interview had he done as well as he did on paper and in the phone interview. The only reason we didn't hire him was because he was clearly a malicious psychopath, and it was pretty clear he wanted the organization's money but had no intention of doing any real work, besides an hour of interviewing, to get it. I had to bring the issue up with our CEO and CFO, and we drafted a very clear statement in return, which I left by voicemail and email. Dear Mr. Thank you for the opportunity to interview you. In response to your prior communication, we feel it very important to clarify that we have not yet decided on a final candidate for this role, and as we discussed in both your phone interview and your in-person interview, the only consideration we will make when deciding on a final candidate is whether one's professional qualifications match the needs of this role. Thank you for your time. We will keep you informed on our final decision. Sincerely, that guy. And, user 12 came into work early for a morning shift, work in an industrial lab. Heard noises from the back corner of the office portion of the building but can't make out what they are because of distortion. Head that way to see what was going on as I was the only one there, so I thought, at 3 a.m., see my lab manager fucking the district manager, a boss, while the HR rep for the district is sitting there, enjoying the view. I noped and went to the lab and tried to forget what happened, and, user 13, the workers had races with those motorized forklifts. One did not know that there was freshly poured concrete, got the forklift stuck in it, damage was more than €100, big foundation for a new storage facility. According to the union contracts, such damages are paid for by the company unless it was intentionally done. Walked into my boss's office, told him about the situation. HMK Shadavi, can you please return to your office for a while, okay? As soon as I was at my desk, I heard the loudest got the damn tissues from his office. Then my phone rang, and he told me to inform the insurance, which ended up paying less than 10k of the damage. Otherwise, the usual HR nightmare is just people not keeping their documents in order. And, user 14.1, I had a bookkeeper that paid himself 2 checks every week. We did not catch it for a year. 2. Another bookkeeper quit and files for unemployment. He then claimed a claim with the OC that he had a disability and we failed to make accommodations for him. The disability was alcoholism, and the accommodations were leaving early to attend AA meetings. Seriously, we had to hire a lawyer to fight that. 3. A guy I hired hurt himself on the first hour of the first day of work. He claimed he fell and hit his head on the wall. He was out for weeks on workman's comp from the concussion. Then when he came back on light duty, he could only do desk work but managed to fall again in the bathroom and hit his head again. It took me 9 months to get rid of him. It turns out this was not his first rodeo. When I called his former employer, the lady I spoke to made an offhand comment about workplace accidents and head injuries and the importance of cameras in the workplace. 4. While doing a remodel of a museum, one of my employees helped himself to a gun that was on display. It was very ugly and embarrassing for everyone. My company was kicked off the job and banned from ever working for them again. I fired a guy and he filed a discrimination claim with the OC because I did not fire the whole crew, just him. Thanks for watching. Please give a like if you enjoyed the video and hit subscribe if you want to see more. See you later.